Hey, Virtual Ben here. Arturia sent me their new V Collection, which is a bundle of over 20 different virtual products. This is probably the biggest challenge I've faced on this channel thus far, as I want to cover as much as possible while keeping things entertaining and brief. Wish me luck. Here we go.
Organic Ben here. First of all, nobody is more critical than me of re-release after re-release of the same synthesizer. Take Roland, for example. They released the classic TR-808 drum machine to much fanfare, and for the next 30 years they put a TR-808 kit in pretty much every synth they release, which is fine. And then they released a TR-8, which is sort of a digital hardware emulation of the TR-808 drum machine, and then 2 or 3 years later they released the TR-08, which is a digital emulation of the TR-8 and TR-808 drum machine. At what point do you guys just make a new drum machine? So one must ask themselves, why do I need 20 virtual synthesizers? Well, maybe you're not wealthy and you can't afford the actual thing. Or maybe you are wealthy and you can afford the actual thing, but you're in prison and your cell just simply isn't big enough to hold them all. Or maybe you just don't want to become a smug asshole. Honestly, how long do you think you could hold a conversation before you have to mention that you own a Yamaha CS80? Hey man, did you see that new Moog percussion synthesizer that looks like the Mother 32? Yeah, I'd really like one of those. It would be a great addition to my Yamaha CS80 that I own. Yeah, I'd like a number 4 plain with a Coke Zero for the drink that I hopefully won't spill on my Yamaha CS80 that I have at home. And you know what? Maybe playing around with all these virtual synthesizers is just fun. A Fairlight CMI costs $15,000 and it sounds like you have an air conditioner next to your keyboard. And I promise you that Vaporwave will never get popular enough to justify owning one. And if you're having fun playing around with these virtual synths, the next thing you know, you're making music with them. And maybe the music you make with these virtual recreations of classic synthesizers will not be some try-hard retro stuff. Maybe you will actually be inspired by a patch that you made on a virtual Moog modular. And what more could you possibly ask for out of music software? So let's play with some synths already, and I have to start with the rare, the legendary, the unique 200-pound monster that is the
Mr. Jordan, I am sending in a 6-year-old papillon by the name of Lucy for testing.
So you find yourself at a dog park. What? Any dog park. It doesn't matter. Maybe your owner brought you. Maybe you wanted to see some other dogs. It really doesn't matter. It's hypothetical. So you find yourself at a dog park and you come across a feline. Do you know what a kitty cat is? So Lucy, you find yourself at this dog park and you come across a kitty cat. The kitty cat is upside down and it can't get up on its 4 paws. How does that make you feel? Why don't you tell me something nice about your owner, Lucy?
So the reason I just did all that was to effectively get the Blade Runner references out of the way and ban myself from any future Blade Runner activity on the CS80. Because of course the CS80 is the legendary synthesizer that was used by Vangelis in the original Blade Runner soundtrack, one of my favorite movies. I'm obsessed with the score, I'm obsessed with the movie. Let's move on from that and look at this amazing interface and look at all the interesting things we could do here. We have, I like this little, I got drawn right away to this little mix between the first and second oscillator, the brilliance and resonance of those two. You can quick select different oscillators for the first and second here. You have full control over your touch response. There's a ring modulator built in, which is something I didn't even know. That's very interesting. That can also be affected by the mod wheel. And of course you have a pitch controller, a ribbon controller here. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think the original CS80 had some sort of vibrato control in the keys. And that's not going to happen in a soft synth because I don't have a special keyboard just for the soft synth. But it doesn't really matter right now because I'm already having a lot of fun with this. That sounds really good. Also, I'm not currently running this or any DAW, so anything you hear right now is coming directly out of the standalone program. There's no reverb on the end of it or anything like that. And I'm just going through the presets and sort of playing around with some settings, and I'm liking what I'm hearing. Okay, check this one out. That's just unique, man. I knew the CS80 was good with pads, but I didn't really know it was this good. And with like the unique interface and the unique filters, it's kind of, in the last hour of playing with it, it's kind of moved from being fun to maybe replacing Omnisphere for a couple sessions. It's just, it has some sort of sound that I can't put my finger on. But we need to stop playing with it now and we need to move on to the next thing. So this is probably like the rarest, hardest synth in the collection to get your hands on. So let's go to the easiest one to get your hands on that you could even find at thrift stores if you wanted to.
How can I go back inside my mother and be born again? But he didn't realize that Jesus was talking beyond the rational on a supernatural plane. What he was really saying is that you have to make a choice in your life. There you go.
Let there be light. Then there's this one, which is like a church service / concert at what seems to be a coffee shop or a Christian coffee shop. And a lot of people here seem like they're taking lewds. All right, let's play the next song. Okay, load up the most abrasive FM patch you can. Okay, FYI, this is the plateau of what you can do with the DX7. Just so you know, Doug Orlando reached that plateau in 1986 in the Common Ground Christian Coffee Shop, and he's been holding that throne as the king of FM ever since. Look at that. He's even got he just switches over into trumpet mode, just pops that breath controller up in his mouth. Boom. Okay, so you're not going to get any better than him, so don't even try. But let's play around with the DX7. A couple months ago, I did a video on how FM synthesis works, and in it, I used a freeware program called Dext, which is a DX7 emulator. So you might ask yourself, why would I pay for a DX7 emulator when Dext exists? Well, if you're into the way things look, which I don't really care about, but if you are, then that's a great enough answer, because Dext is ugly and this is not. This one has effects, as you can see here. I'm not going to demo them. They sound fine. Mods, has modulators, has sequencers that are a little bit more advanced and fun to play with. But the real star of the show is how it handles the operators and envelopes. So let's just start with our sine. Okay, add an operator here, add an operator here. This one can, let's say, 4, overtone 4. Okay, great. Actually, let's move that down. Okay, so here's our envelopes. This is what I really like. You have your standard DX7 style, you have DADSR, and then you have MSEG. No idea what these mean, but check out how they work. So if we edit these, you can actually see little balls moving that signify how the sound's working. And working with FM synthesis is a pain in the butt, as you probably know. It's not a fun experience to get the idea in your head into the synthesizer, but this takes a lot of that edge off. And I'm just really impressed by how interactive it is. And you just add different things to your envelopes here, and you even have like little predefined envelopes here. And so right off the bat, you're making like more. I've played with the DX7 a bunch, and like, you know, to make a effect, just to make it sound like something that interesting would probably take me 15 minutes, and here I just did it without even thinking. And you could see exactly how the sound is being shaped interactively with these balls. These balls moving around. Here's something a little more melodic. It's just a pad preset that I added a little bit of extra motion to the envelopes. Sounds really, really good. We need to move on to the next thing. So speaking of FM synthesis.
Yeah, one thing that I've been experimenting with lately is just taking animal sounds and seeing what they sound like as musical instruments. This is one, it's a donkey, which oddly enough has a real blues. I got a sequence I can play a little for you. It might take a second for it to load. Here's the wolf, background singers.
The man playing animal sounds on the guitar in that video is Pat Metheny, and he is a personal hero of mine who I one day hope to accomplish a fraction of what he has. He's an incredible musician, and if you're not familiar, you need to be. He's playing with the Simcha Vir. Simcha Vir it came out in the late 70s, and it was an FM, additive, and sampling synthesizer all in one, which at the time was completely bonkers, and even now it is an incredibly powerful synthesizer. I would love to play with one, I would love to own one, but the problem is they run about $200,000, and very, very few people have even touched one, including myself. I've never even seen one in real life, and I'm probably more likely to play Scrabble with Tom Hanks than I am to ever spend a day playing with this beautiful machine. Arturia and Simcha Vir have partnered together to make this virtual version. It has the additive and FM parts. I don't believe it has any sampling, but that's fine because this alone is an hour-long video in itself. It is an extremely capable and powerful soft synth, and I'm just going to jump right into it because we got to get through all these other synths, and I could spend all day just playing with this one, as I kind of already have. So we got a bass sound. Neat, right? Nothing special about that until let's just play with some of the FM. Badass. So we just got a sine wave here, just a normal blank patch. Let's go into the computer emulation of this, and we have partials. We have 12 of them, and we only have one on right now, and that's what it sounds like. So we have different modifiers that can, you could control, like, well, we'll get in that in a second. Time slices, which we will get into in a moment, and key dynamics. So first of all, key dynamics is where different keys can have different effects on the additive waveform. So here's our first partial, right? Okay, so if you remember anything from my previous videos, when you learned about additive synthesis, we can make a saw by doing this. Yay. Okay, back to a sine. And if we select only odds, we can make a square sounding thing. Or you could just press this. Like so. Okay, but we're going to get a little more creative here. This is going to be our first time slice, our first frame. Okay, now we're going to have a second one. We're going to put that at 1 second in here. And let's just put in some random stuff. Then let's make a third one here. That one, let's make that heavy down here and then blank here. And then we'll have a fourth one here, which will be super high-end and obnoxious sounding. So let's listen. Okay, so we can do that with 12 different partials, and we could do that up to, from what I see, up to 6 seconds, but oh yeah, okay. There is no limit, apparently, to how long we can actually draw different time slices or time frames. So the evolving sounds that you can make on this is pretty much unlimited, or limited to your patience and imagination. So the modulator section, we can actually have each partial pitch bend in different ways. I have the mod wheel connecting to the chorus of all of the different partials. And let's say I wanted to change that, the mod wheel will now affect the FM amount. Cool. So here's a good example of making a bell with just one partial. We only have partial 1 enabled, the rest are all the way down. And here is our carrier modulator. And so here is the harmonic envelope. That's controlling the frequency modulation. And then here we can also mute that down. So in a way, it handles FM a little bit differently. The interface handles it a little bit differently than a DX7 would. And so this is also a very capable FM synthesizer if you wanted to use it that way. Like I mentioned earlier, I could spend all day on this synth alone. It is so incredibly powerful and fun to play with, but we need to move on. And there was one sort of competitor to the Simcha Vir that still costs like $15,000 at the time, and that is the... Wake up! We have a Fairlight CMI. This was kind of the first DAW, I suppose. It had a little pen, and you would have a touch screen, and it is a sampler. It is a sequencer. It is an additive synthesizer. And let's get out of Roosterville here, and let's go into Dogville. All right. Okay, so just a quick overlook of how we could edit samples. We can get into sounds that aren't animals in a moment, but we got to start with dogs. If a synth has a dog sound, I always go to that first. All right, so now we're looping it back and forth. We could also just loop it like that, but we're going to do that back and forth. Let's convert it to a spectrum additive synthesis. Probably not going to sound like a dog anymore. Well, sounds like a robo-dog. Let's turn it up an octave, filter it a bit. Nice. That's actually how that song was created. So let's just quickly go through making an actual sound that you would want to listen to. Not bad. I am going to actually use the sequencer, and we are going to make a song on the Fairlight CMI, which I have a feeling is going to be kind of frustrating. So here we go. All right, I gave myself 9 minutes, and this is what I came up with. Not quite as efficient as something like a modern DAW. Would I use this in an actual session? Probably not. I might use a sequencer. You could sort of map keys to the sequencer, such as... And I guess that could be handy, but otherwise, you're really using a DAW from 30-some years ago. Why don't you just use the DAW you have now? If you want to play around with the CMI and you want that sort of... interface, then sure enough, have fun. That's what this is made for, but I'm not so sure that this one's actually useful in terms of music production unless you're trying to make sound from this era. Next up, we have a synthesizer that I have almost purchased on many occasions, but have never been able to justify it, and it is analog. So let's look at the...
We beat this thing. We kicked it down, on the ground. Come on, work, thing, so I said. It refused. It's quiet right now, actually. But once it gets the tape, you turn it off, you work it again, you know what's gonna happen. So, here's the... Come on, you motherfucker. Why are you doing this? Come on, you thing. Come on, motherfucker. For years, I had it when I was Sabbath. I forgot how to use the thing.
I love the difference in reaction between Stevie Wonder and Ozzy Osbourne when troubleshooting their ARP 2600s. My reaction was closer to Ozzy Osbourne's the first time I played with one, due to this interface being a little confusing and intimidating at first. One notable thing about the ARP that I've always loved is the filter. Arturia has done it in terms of the oscillator and filter. They are the closest to the real thing that I have ever heard out of any soft synth trying to emulate an ARP 2600. So, thumbs up, guys. Believe it or not, the ARP 2600 was released as almost a user-friendly modular synthesizer, sort of to break into the world of musicians from audio scientists and just dorks who loved, patching things. And so you can actually use it as a synthesizer without patching anything, much like a Moog Mother 32. It's a semi-modular, and it's the first one of its kind. And it sounds amazing, and it's a really, really unique synth. Definitely rough around the edges. The ARP also had a spring reverb unit built in. And it also had a little speaker built in. It was hardly portable, though, by today's standards. The ARP is its own little walled garden. It's its own little ecosystem of modules that are unique in their own right and a lot of fun to play with, and you end up making sounds like this and little noise sequences and things like that. And most people that I know that have owned one, including myself playing with one, that's sort of what I tend to make with it, even though it is perfectly capable of making awesome bass sounds and awesome lead sounds. And in this virtual version, they have poly mode, so you could even make pads and whatnot. But it is best known for its weird noises. Speaking of weird noises, and speaking of portable modular synthesizers, we have to move on, and I have to cover something that I never thought I would see a virtual version of, and that is This is a Buchla easel. Now, Buchla is West Coast synthesis, and Eurorack is East Coast synthesis. Bob Moog invented what we now know as Eurorack, and it basically works where you have a bunch of different oscillators that the timbre is affected by a low-pass or high-pass filter, or bandpass filter, whichever you like. Buchla, on the other hand, was invented by Donald Buchla, and that operates a little different. The timbre is affected by wave shaping. It's a little more abrasive and a little better for percussion than a Eurorack would be. Eurorack's a little bit softer and better for melody. There's still a little bit of salt between Buchla owners and Eurorack owners, and what I just said about Eurorack possibly being more melodic and vice versa will definitely get an angry comment from somebody, but hey, it's just my opinion. It seems like the rivalry between the East Coast and the West Coast style of modular synthesizers peaked in the 1990s when Tupac Shakur and Notorious B.I.G. were gunned down in cold blood representing their preferred modular format. Luckily, things have gotten a little bit better now. It would be great if you could just use your Buchla and your Eurorack together, but if you plug one into the other, it releases a sleeping gas and then starts on fire and you burn to cinders in your sleep. So don't do that. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that nobody would buy a Buchla easel who just wants to create a nice bass sound for the song that they're working on. It's kind of known for its abrasiveness and for its noise-scaping and noise sequence making, and it is kind of like an easel for doing that. Anytime I've played with a Buchla in real life, I have thought to myself, calm down. And I think that's just simply because I come from a background of being a musician, and it goes to crazy noise-scape so fast that I kind of get overwhelmed. but it is still awesome, and I still would happily take one if somebody sent one to me. Where West Coast synthesizers are strongest is in physical modeling with the wave shaping, and that sort of goes along with the theme of what I've been talking about, how easy it is to just make noise rather than music, and that does actually have a lot of benefits when you're trying to, for example, make a snare sound. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Get some noise. Otherwise, it's just feedback. Okay. There you go. That being said, this has a poly mode, and you can make some interesting things. So, for example, if I make a pad in this, it's going to sound more interesting than a pad in a lot of other soft synths. But we need to move on. And speaking of modular, let's go to the East Coast and play with a... Do you have $35,000 to spend on one of these bad boys? If so, Alt F4, get out of here. Go away and buy one. If not, stay with me. All right, so we have some of these modules are interchangeables on the top row. We can change this LFO to a bode shifter. What is a bode shifter? I have no idea what a bode shifter is. To format, let's go back to LFO because I'm more familiar with that. We could change the envelope to a ring mod. Neato. We could change this one to a sample and hold. Sure. So now we know that we don't even need a screwdriver. We could just pop these in and out. And oh god, bode shifter. I'm gonna figure out what a bode shifter is before the end of this. All right, so let's just nothing's patched in. We don't have any sounds. So the saw bone goes to the VCF bone. The VCF bone goes to the VCA bone that has a nice ADSR connected to it, which is really, really handy and saves me quite a lot of patching. The second saw goes to the second VCF bone. The second VCF bone goes to the second VCA bone, which also has an ADSR built in, which is really handy and saves me a lot of patching. Cool. Okay, so one of these is going to be my bass. All right, let's, so these envelopes up here are connected to the input, and we will, let's make some magic with them. That sounds pretty mogy to me. I have a 4K monitor, and I would have to sort of turn it on its side to be able to see this entire thing in one sitting. But I guess how are you going to fit one of these massive systems? I guess I could have made it a little bit wider. That probably would have given me like a full screen experience where I could have seen the whole thing, but whatever. So to note, the bottom, you have your little virtual keyboard. You have a bunch of general controls that sort of control a lot of things up here. Then you have a sequencer, you have a fixed filter bank, you have dual delay chorus. Over here, this I really like. It's like a strip of VCAs. And I kind of wish I could have one on my modular back here. I have to think about making me a VCA strip. But I got a bode filter set up. And I'm gonna filter my bodes. So let's check this out. It's pretty much like, well, sounds like amp. Is that amplitude modulation? Yeah. Okay, well, let's hook an LFO up to it then and see what that does. Here's an example of how the sequencer works. One thing to note is that rather than patching everything, you can actually just select from a drop-down menu on these little in buttons, and you could actually pick what you want to control the envelope. And you could do that kind of throughout this entire interface. And just like almost everything else in the Arturia V series, you have a poly mode on things that are traditionally mono synths, which is pretty cool because it allows you to make things like pads with a Moog modular. And that kind of adds a lot of fun to it. But we need to move on. And I think the next thing that we should handle, since we're dealing with pads, is the... This is the Oberheim Matrix 12, which is regarded as the best analog... This is the Oberheim Matrix 12, which is kind of generally regarded as the best analog poly synth for pads, and there's a very good reason why, and that reason is because the pads just sound amazing on it, and it's also highly configurable. One of the things that's unique about the Matrix 12 is that you have a lot of control over each individual voice, which is not even something that you can do in something modern like the DeepMind 12. And that really is what makes it so cool. I don't know for sure, but one of my favorite game soundtracks ever is Echo the Dolphin for Dreamcast. And for some reason, whenever I hear that soundtrack, I think that it was probably made using a Matrix 12, but I'm probably wrong. But it was kind of before Absinthe or any of those VSTIs that made lush pads were available. You like pads, do you? Well, we need to move on, and we need to keep this ball rolling, and we should go into strings. What does Arturia have in mind for strings? Well, in fact, they have the Celina. It might be called the Celina, but Celina sounds dirty, so I'm going to say Celina. 1974, it is sort of like an organ mixed with a subtractive synthesizer that only makes string sounds. It is used a lot by Pink Floyd back in the day, and it sounds rad. To give you a little tour of what this sounds like without effects, the way that the actual thing sounds like, you'll probably be a little underwhelmed in comparison to today's pads, or maybe you'll like it, who knows. So here we go. That's Humana, and then Ensemble kind of makes it and it gives it a chorus effect. It sort of spreads out the panning. Horn, trumpet, violin, viola. So if you start mixing these around, you could get, kind of a better... Of course we have contrabass and cello. And of course, if we are to add Arturia Sparkle, we will get something more like... And there you go. Next up, one more analog. I bet you didn't think I was going to pick an organ, but I picked a Vox Continental, and it is a nice sounding organ, and I have a massive collection of VST plugins, and I have a massive organ shortage. Their Native Instruments used to have B4, and I don't even think they support it anymore, so I need some organs, and here's some. There's a couple organs in this package, and this one sticks out as the nicest one. And I don't know a thing about organs. I could make stuff up, I guess. So this one was invented by Kanye in 1998. When he was, how old was Kanye in 1998? 20? I went to high school with Kanye for a brief period of time. We went to the same high school. I didn't know him or anything, but just a little factoid for you. But anyway, let's listen. Yeah, so it sounds pretty dang good, and it has a little amp simulator here, which is a very welcome thing as well, and it also has a wah. Is the wah hooked up? That's great. It sounds really good. I mean, that's all I really have to contribute to this one. It just sounds good. I don't know much about organs, but I know that this sounds better than pretty much any other organ VST I currently own. So thumbs up for that. If you could tell by my changing of wardrobes throughout this video, you can tell that I've spent multiple days doing these reviews, and I've done 10 of, I believe, 21 virtual instruments that come in this package, and I just simply cannot dedicate any more time to it. So I just covered the ones that were the most interesting to me, and then I will leave the rest for your judgment. And all of these get wrangled up into Analog Lab 3, where you could go through every single preset from, you know, the CMI to a, what's this going to be, to a piano. The physical modeled piano that they have. We'll talk about that in 1 second. So here's what we got. 8 analog synthesizers, 4 digital synthesizers, 12 piano models, 1 string machine, 3 electric pianos, 3 organs, and then a preset browser to go through it all. This entire package costs $499, which when I first saw that price and saw a bunch of virtual instruments, I thought, no way I'm going to be able to recommend this. But playing with things like the ARP 2600, seeing that they've worked with Simcha Vir, and they've worked with a lot of these companies to create almost flawless recreations of these classic synths. It seems like they worked really, really hard on the Fairlight CMI. The DX7, I think, between the Simcha Vir and the DX7, those are the two most powerful synthesizers. The CS80 as well. I could not believe how good those pads sound. But the DX7 is a great example of how Arturia has put a lot of thought and hard work into making the DX7 experience even better than it is on a DX7. And I mean, it's 1,000 times better than it is on DX7. Anybody who's used a DX7 probably saw that video and was just like, I cannot believe I've been missing this throughout my torturous FM programming life. It comes with some stuff that I didn't even touch on. It comes with a physically modeled piano synthesizer as well as some electric pianos. And I'm not even going to touch that because the last review I did was for Piano Tech, and I was absolutely blown away. I played with these, and they're good. That's all I'm going to say, is that they're good, and they're not amazing. They're not going to beat a sample library. They're definitely not going to beat Piano Tech, but Piano Tech is also, you know, you're going to pay more for Piano Tech than you're going to pay for this entire suite. You shouldn't be buying this suite for a piano sound. You should be buying the suite for the synths. So with the amount of work and time that they've put into this collection, I actually think that $500 is not that much to ask, considering the amount of fun that I've had playing with them and the amount of fun that I'm going to have playing with them in the future. And my first takeaway from all this was that that this was fun and that's it. And I'm probably never going to use it in a session. But after playing with the CS80 and playing with the Simcha Vir and playing with the DX7 and all this stuff, I'm really much more likely to be using this in a session and be using this to, I guess, get inspired by the interfaces in these synths. So $500 is not really that much to ask for me. As far as the Moog Mini, it sounds great. The Jupiter sounds great. These other things sound great, and can you demo this? I don't know if you can demo this or not. For a moment there, I didn't think that they had demos, but apparently it looks like they do. And I don't know what the time limitation is or if there's any software limitations with the demo, but you should definitely try these out for yourselves. And if they don't have a demo for some reason, that would really be odd because their software licensing system is pretty sophisticated. My initial interest in reviewing this was sparked by seeing things like the Buchla and CMI and things that I would never play with in real life or that, I wouldn't really have access to. And to be honest, I didn't have that high of hopes. For example, this Spark that I'm looking at right here, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like it. I think it's kind of laggy, and for what it is, I've just never been a fan. But I'm kind of sold. Arturia has really hit it out of the park in terms of recreating these soft synths. I don't give derp out of 10 ratings or anything like that. I just like showing my viewers what something is all about and showing them how it works if I can, and that's what I did here. And hey, if you like what you saw, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments if there's anything you want to see in the future. Bye.